It's so moist.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Functional Meatheads. I'm Mark DeSalvo.
And I'm Fernand Sanchez.
I was on the train today, and because of the U.S. Open going on in Queens right now, like the tennis tournament, uh, I guess this is the reason. But I've been seeing a lot of people wearing tennis memorabilia, carrying rackets, and all kinds of things. Oddly enough, I've been seeing a lot of people who looked like they just played tennis carrying rackets, and I don't often see that, but I've been seeing it a lot lately. But the only reason I bring it up is because this lady was standing next to me at the train station today, just about an hour ago, and she was wearing a Roger Federer hat. And I just recognized his logo because I just know way too much sports trivia. And I was like, oh, it's like those like that stupid Tom Brady logo and stuff. Like Roger Federer has his own.
Right?
What's that?
It's the fancy RF.
Yeah, exactly. So I noticed it, and I was like, "Huh, this is weird." That's like it's like wearing a NASCAR driver thing, like in a way. And like wearing individual sports uniforms are weird, if you ask me. Like, not that you shouldn't do it. It's just it's funny to me. I guess we're so conditioned to see like football jerseys, hockey jerseys, baseball, Yankees stuff, Red Sox stuff, that when you see someone wearing like Roger Federer or Tom Brady or Tiger Woods or Dale Earnhardt, it's just kind of strange almost.
Yeah, it's very weird. Like the Tom Brady one, why did he do that? Is that his hat and he just wears it?
I have no idea.
Or do they sell it?
I'm sure they sell it. Why else would you do it, you know?
Just something he would do, like it's my hat.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's strange. It made me think, and I was like, over the years, over recent years, I've really gravitated more towards individual sports than team sports. Like, maybe it's just something you do when you get older. I don't know. Like, I like MMA. I like boxing. I do like tennis. I like. You
Well,
know,
I think you misspoke. You out of everybody know MMA is a team sport.
well, that's true.
Nutritionist.
Very, very true. Very true. But in
I'm,
other words, I'm
I'm
not
kidding.
like I know you're being antagonistic, but I'm not. I'm not likely though to necessarily go and buy like a John Jones shirt or you know what I mean, that type of thing.
He's an asshole. I don't think you're John Jones.
Okay, well, someone like GSP who I really like, I'm probably not gonna buy a GSP shirt.
Did you ever have one of those? They used to make these when you were younger, when I was younger. So it'd be like a Steelers shirt, but it would be like Ben Roethlisberger, and he'd be like just him. So it'd say Steelers like the logo, and then like a big caricature of Ben Roethlisberger or something.
Oh yeah, I had a Cordell Stewart one. I
Yeah.
had yeah.
What's the difference between that and that? Or is
Well,
there a difference?
probably not. I take that back. It was Cordell Stewart, Jerome Bettis, and one of the receivers on the shirt, like cartoon style.
Oh, it wasn't just one?
Yeah, it was the three of them. And there was another, and then I had one with the Penguins. It was Mario Lemieux, Ron Francis, and Jaromir Jagr. But you're right. I mean, there's not much of a difference. That's why I started thinking about the psychology of it. I was like, this is kind of weird. I shouldn't be weird with it because in a way, like, it's a tribal marking anyway, whether it's a team or a person. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very. I'm trying to think of. I've always been like, I'm a logo guy. Like, I like the Raiders logo. Give me a shirt with the Raiders logo, you know?
I love the Raiders logo too, and I'm not even a fan. You know?
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I've never been a fan of the individual. Like even now, I love soccer. I love soccer, but I would buy a team's jersey, but I would never get somebody else's name on the back of a jersey that isn't mine.
Right. I always felt that way.
That's like the weirdest beta thing in the world, you know?
Right. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah, exactly. Once I got past an age, like a young age, it's funny you say that because I think I was like 11 or something, and I said I don't want to wear someone else's jersey, even if it's maybe Mario Lemieux is the only exception.
Oh,
But,
Gretzky.
well, Gretzky, as great as he wasn't like the hometown hero. You know what I mean? For me,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. You're right though. It is a weird beta sort of thing to wear someone else's name on you and whatnot.
Maybe
But
it's an ego thing on my part, but I was like, I don't know, I would never wear like somebody else's jersey with their name on it. I would get their number, but I would never get their name, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Conversely,
true.
I wouldn't get a professional jersey and put my last name on it either.
Yeah.
That's
Honestly,
that's weird too.
it is. All through the years and all the different hockey uniforms that were made for me, for all the different teams I played for, my favorite ones were the ones that just had numbers on them. I never liked even my last name on it. It's just like, it was weird to me. I don't know why it was weird, but that's why I've always liked the Yankees uniforms. It's just numbers. There's no last names.
Yeah, it's a weird concept. It's a weird team concept. I mean, I don't rail against it. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like, in going back to what you were saying about soccer and even MMA, like being team things, it's funny though because, I was watching UFC on Saturday. I can't remember what number it was. It was the TJ Dillashaw title defense, his first one against what was supposed to be Burrell, but he dropped out at the last second because of a weight cut issue. But really scary actually. He passed out and hit his head.
Yeah, I heard a bunch of different stories, but
Yeah, me too.
it doesn't matter. What I heard was Dana White was talking trash. He was blaming the media and the fighters or something like.
Yeah, I mean that could merit a whole other podcast discussion topic. But anyway, the point I was trying to make is that I was sitting at this bar with my friend watching it, and every fight that came on, and I'm kind of like a nerd with this stuff. Like I would be like, oh yeah, he's a great fighter. I actually love his trainer, and like I would be like, yeah, he trains with blah blah blah, and I like what he does with this stuff. My friend laughed, and he was like, you know more about their trainers and all that stuff than anyone else. And I was like, yeah, I guess it really is a sort of a team sport, or maybe it's just my own like. But in other words, I'm acknowledging that it's not just Anthony Pettis, it's Duke Rufus, Anthony Pettis, and his whole team,
Oh, I agree. Like people do the same thing with movies. Oh, I like this actor, and I go, well, what movie? Oh, this movie. Oh, it's a good director, and this writer did this movie. I pretty much do the same thing. IMDb. I like, oh, this writer's good. I'll see movies based on directors, or I'll see movies based on screenwriters. You know.
Yeah, I mean, and it just goes to show you, like, everything kind of is a team effort in life, which maybe is why, bringing it full circle, is why it was weird to me to see, like, the RF logo, because I'm sure Roger Federer has world-class nutritionists, had a great tennis coach, whatever, so it's weird to see him taking, not that he's, like, saying egotistically, I take all the credit, but it's funny to see, rather than Roger Federer call him and his team, like, the Wet Bandits. Instead, it's Roger Federer. It's a name.
I bought one of those Tiger Woods caps when they came out, the Nike ones, the TW, just because I like the logo.
Yeah, that was a cool logo.
It was a comfortable. It's a cool logo, and it was a very comfortable hat. Those golf hats are very comfortable.
Yeah, no, they are. They're built out of those awesome materials.
Like wicking material. So I was like, oh, that's usually what I do. So yeah, I see what you're saying. It is a weird thing. But I guess with fighters, it's all those T-shirts that they put out, you know?
Yeah. Well, a lot of fighters usually, I don't know. See, maybe I'm too close to it, but it always seems like the difference with fighters is that you see their team walk out with them. So it's like, yeah, it's their name, but it's usually like, I don't know, like GSP, and he's gonna have what's the guy's name, his trainer behind him, and then another one of the guys from TriStar, and someone else in this corner, and it's like that. That's his team, or like Weidman with Sarah and Ray Longo. Like that's really cohesive. If you know more than a casual fan about fighting or martial arts, like oftentimes you do jump right to like who trained this guy, who's like his guru, who's his whatever, because lineage is sort of important. What was that?
Really, that's the real story about it all. It's kind of like you and I. We go to restaurants or whatever. We'll have lunch, and then we look at the girls or the guys, and we're like, that girl has a nice body, but we're not. It's not sexual. It's just like, oh, we always want to know like.
Not sexual, Freud. No, sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, we always want to know like who's training her or what she's doing for training. You and I always do that. Like, oh, I wonder what she's doing. We try to figure out what they're doing for training. It's kind of like, well, basically we're saying who's your trainer, or are you training yourself?
Right. Or do
we
you
always do that. We always do that on our own. Or I always see like an older woman, and I'm like, you have a nice body. What are you doing? Like, what's working for you? Yoga, Pilates, SoulCycle. Like, what mix is working for you?
Right. And I should. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I should qualify that too and say that like Well, I don't know if you mean this, but I know that when I'm looking at other people's physiques and whatnot, the first thing I notice is not like, oh, they have a nice body. I always look is like, does your body work? You know what I mean? Like, do you have like? I notice people who have like, when people don't have any evidence of forward head, shoulders, pelvic tilt, all that stuff, like instantly you stand out to me because most people have those
Oh
things.
yeah,
And
especially
then,
especially my age. Like when I see somebody over 35, and I'm like, damn, your neck is broken, man. It's just broken the wrong way. And I'm like, in my
right,
head, I start counting up. I'm like, that's about a year of neck work, broken ankles or feet. I'm like like busted. I'm like, that's about a year. No butt. I'm like, that's about a year. I start in my head these not dollar signs because I don't want to train them. It's more like, what would I do to fix this person? How long will it take to fix them?
yeah,
You know,
exactly. And so the converse is that when you kind of admire that, the first thing that's like the first thing I notice is like they'll be like, oh, interesting. She moves like she doesn't have a pelvic tilt. She doesn't have all this stuff. And then of course it's all the other stuff. It's like, oh well, she's kind of built like a sprinter. Like I wonder what she does. You know what I mean? Or you know, or he's built like a
yeah.
CrossFitter or something. You know, whatever.
Mostly what I do now is like I'll see people with nice bodies and then they're just obsessively working out, and I'm like, God, how do you tell somebody you need to work out less and accept your body? Like
Yeah.
doing like they come in, they have some serious workouts. They're serious, they put the time in, but they're not doing it 100% right, or they could be doing something better. And those are the people that I wish I could just help and be like, hey, you're doing stuff good, but you could do it better. And they're usually the ones that think they know everything and they don't want any help. So it's kind of like a weird, or you're just trying to sell them.
Right. Sometimes your like individual success when you're relatively untrained can kind of like damage your progress, and
Well,
in a way that you
I would even say that individual success is like genetics.
right, exactly. And but what I'm saying is if you let it go to your head, you're never going to be able to get kind of coached to your full potential. Like you might never
Like,
realize what you just said. And it's true of athletes, it's true of like people who academics, it's true of writers, all this stuff
that's,
that like
that's what it should be. Like, is the bulk of what I see is they just take something they learned in a class and they replicate it there, but which is fundamentally flawed because what you learn in a class is not meant for you to do individually. It's meant for you to do in a class. The reason you do it in a class is to save time, save money. You're doing like you're like doing 25% of personal training there.
right.
I would even say 10 to 15% of personal training. You're just getting a workout. Um, and then you're taking that to the gym and doing that. That's not the way to do it. If anything, if they buy personal training and tell them, hey, I want to do this twice a week. I want to do this another day a week. So let's write everything down and I'll copy it. That's the best way. That would be the best way for people to use their money health-wise in a gym at New York City.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get with a trainer once, 3 times a week, get 3 workouts and mix them up throughout for 2 months, then get another 3 sessions, get 3 workouts, mix them up. That would be the best thing to do.
Yeah, most definitely, man.
Anyways, that's a little side project that we could figure out. But
Yeah, and we can let that be we can let that kind of stand in for our projects today. And
yeah, I don't really have any, just nothing really big. Just continuing the Walls diet and the Walls form of the Walls protocol and drinking water, and now I added more meditation, and it's all clicking together. But it's basically bringing everything we've talked about in past podcasts to the forefront and using it to have more energy.
word. And before we transition to, sorry about our absence last week. I had a little emergency. I guess I've been touched by death recently.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no. I had that rib injury from God knows what, probably jujitsu, and I kind of just caught a fever and had some severe abdominal pain. So I kind of, rightfully was alarmed, because fever accompanying abdominal pain could mean, spleen issues, appendix issues, all types of things. So I had to kind of go get that worked out, and I'm okay. Everything was fine, but it just meant an absence for us last week, so I apologize.
I'll live. I'll live.
Yeah,
I'm a tough guy.
yeah. But what Froy and I wanted to talk about today was it's a documentary that Froy has been trying to get me to watch for a long time, and it wasn't out of lack of interest that I was not watching it. And I'm referring to Bigger, Stronger, Faster. I think that's the order of the adjectives.
Bigger, stronger, yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe you watched it till after. I was like, I didn't believe you. And you're like, I watched it. How'd you find it? Illegally?
No, it's on Netflix.
What? Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, man, it's free, dog.
Free dog.
But so
Go ahead and give people the background on it, just so they have an idea.
all right, so I don't know if you're a powerlifting or lifting person, you've probably heard of Mark Bell. I think it was Mark who was the ex-wrestler. He was also, I guess, an ex-football player, turned powerlifter, trained with Louis Simmons, whatnot. He comes from a family of pretty gifted lifters. Like they're all very fit guys. But anyway, his middle brother, I can't remember the guy's name. Do you remember the middle brother's name?
But one was a wrestler, and one's like a power lifter.
Right. Well, powerlifter and wrestler.
Oh, okay. Both did wrestling. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. The youngest one did, or maybe it's the oldest one. He's been trying to wrestle.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, he tried most of his life. But anyway, it's a movie basically that takes a look at steroids and steroids, performance-enhancing drugs, and the culture of sports, and kind of looks at the question: is it cheating? Kind of why do people do it? What's actually going on when you take them? It kind of gets into the ethics of it too, and I appreciated its approach. I would highly recommend it because I think it's the first rung on the ladder to kind of getting over the sensationalized, uninformed view of steroids, performance-enhancing drugs, growth hormone, whatever, all these different things. It's a very honest and more interesting discussion of it. Do you have anything to share before I get into more?
Yeah, no, I really liked. I like the angle. I like the fact that he talks about it from a very deeply personal level.
Right.
Because of how it permeated his family, and then how he talks about it from the outside, I would almost say, I don't want to say real reporting or real journalism, but more visceral. Like, oh, they think your son killed himself because of steroids. Let me go talk to you about it.
Right.
As opposed to CNN going, oh my God, steroids, 9 o'clock. Here's the deep inside story about steroid. Like super sensationalizing it, like you said.
Right.
So I think it's a good place for somebody to kind of, get the start, like you said, the first step on like, okay, well, do I want to just believe all this bullshit on steroids and growth hormone and stuff, or do I want to, let me see from somebody's perspective,
Right.
So go ahead though, but I would love to hear your opinion. You saw it more recently than I did. I've seen it twice. I liked it both times.
Yeah, I'm definitely planning on watching it again sometime soon. I liked everything you just said too, and I think that the most interesting part is that I think kind of what he probably would want you to take away from it, and what I kind of take away from it, and it's kind of like the gun debate, any other drug debate in America. It's that all of these things are less of an issue of are they harmful for you? Are they harmful to you? Because like all of these things have the potential to be greatly harmful to you, but it's more of like, why are you taking it? And I think that in a way, he didn't have to say it, but just through kind of being honest and very personal with everything, he was showing like kind of how his brother couldn't get off of him. Like they're helping his competitive weightlifting career, even in spite of him not being able to conceive a child while he was on them, and and all this stuff and then talking about how he's never going to be able to get off of them. Like even saying, like after making a promise to his wife that he was going to get off of them for good, him saying, well, after the baby's back, I don't know, maybe I'll go back on them. It was really interesting. And the one thing that I always have to say with all of this stuff is that all of these drugs designed or that are used in sports as performance enhancers, they all were designed for a reason. They weren't designed to be used with athletes in most cases. They were designed to serve a very specific purpose, and these people use them in an off-label usage type situation, and it just so happens that they gained enhancements from it. And that's one
I would say over enhancements, right? Like
over enhancement, yeah. So, the way that Bell kind of put it forth in the movie is that it's these things have the potential to help a lot of people. Like there's a lot of AIDS patients who do very well on steroids, and it's like, yeah, they're probably the ones who those drugs are designed for.
Well, go ahead.
And when you use all of these drugs in a way that wasn't that you're like an otherwise healthy guy, but you're doing it to enhance yourself. I'm not even getting into the argument of like, oh, it's cheating. A-Rod cheated. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just you're using it for a way that it wasn't designed to be used, and to me, that's more of my problem. In that you have to educate people that that has consequences.
Well, and that's what my point was going to be, that these people are not supposed to be using them because they're young, healthy. Their body produces
what it's supposed to be.
A lot of what this stuff synthetically produces for them, so they don't need it.
Right.
And in the long run, they pay the price because either their body just doesn't make testosterone anymore. The body corrects that. If it says, oh, you're gonna make this, okay, I don't need to make this for you anymore. So the body corrects all this stuff. So I don't know. It's a weird. If you watch it with an open mind and try to forget all the bullshit about steroids, you're gonna see a lot of different perspectives, from like a person who killed themselves, they thought, because of steroids, to a person who just cannot break his image of, I'm this big strong person and I need this to get an edge, all the way to just like, oh, what are steroids? What's drugs? Or what are supplements? Did you like the part about supplements? I kept telling you about that part, how easy it is to put a supplement on the market.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
He's from Home Depot, and he made a thing in a box and sold it.
Right, yeah, he got all the different ingredients, kind of sourced from these like chemical manufacturers where you just buy it in bulk for cheap, and packaged it up at home by hiring Mexican migrant workers.
Yeah, it was like a funny little project, and I was like, wow, that's why I tell everybody, it's not that. All that stuff you're buying, you're basically just paying for a label, a fancy-ass label.
Right.
That sold you on the product.
And, the ending was very telling, because and kind of should show you that, he has a lot of horses in this race because it's so close to his family. But his opinion is so nuanced, kind of like the issue is, because, like he said, how proud they all were of his brother for breaking that record and winning that competition, and yet at the same time, they all knew how harmful his addiction and whatnot has been to steroids.
Well, it's like achievement, it's success. Like it's very similar to, like, okay, we have a couple clients, or we've had clients where they're over 40 and they're successful, rich, everything you could want in New York, but their bodies are just a mess,
Right.
They've achieved the pinnacle of something. It's the same thing with these guys. He achieved the record. He did this, but he did it a certain way, and what did it cost along the way? So our view is more like, what's more important,
Exactly.
Like it's not so, to us it's black and white. Like you and I'd be like, screw that guy, he cheated, screw that family's all jacked up. But it's not like that. It's more, what are my attachments to the story as somebody who's a brother, a father, a mother, a sister to the exact, dealings of what's going on.
Right, right.
I don't know. It's very weird. Like, what are you supposed to say? Like, hey, don't do this. Don't do this thing that you've identified yourself with. Like, because the opposite is you're fixing something deeply psychological that takes years.
Exactly, and that's the point. Like, to me, that's the point, is that all of these issues are so deeply psychological, because if people had a certain perspective of kind of understanding that there's going to be a future me, or they actually contemplate, why am I thinking about doing this now, you're not going to have a lot of these issues. A lot of these guys, if they know, even if you were to start buying the what I would call propaganda that these things are perfectly harmless and nothing's going to happen to you, like, first of all, there's no way to prove that, because they're just not studied enough, and you have all types of complications that we even know in the past few years that can happen from it. I'm not trying to, like, demonize it. I'm just saying that we know now it's looking, or I should say it's looking very good, that the research shows that if you're on it and you go off of it, you're never going to actually fire back to your normal levels of testosterone. It's not going to happen, and that has implications.
It's possible, but I don't know. I don't know the actual answer to that.
So, but what I'm trying to say is that if people think about the fact that I'm using something,
is it worth the risk?
Yeah, that I know is going to help me now, but I risk my health later.
I think they weigh the consequences. Let's look at Clemens. Let's look at Clemens, Armstrong, and McGuire. They're barely. Armstrong got the brunt of it, but I think because he went way overboard with his ego.
Right.
Clemens and McGuire, they both did a little bit of the same thing, but they never got to the point where as big as Armstrong in terms of, like, I am this. Not only am I this, I'm this. They didn't reach those levels that were away from their sport.
Right.
Because Armstrong's sport, nobody gives a crap about to this day. And I'm being rude, but obviously, you know my point being that no way is cycling anywhere near baseball, and baseball is not that big anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think it's just the breakout, the whole thing he symbolized, just got that backlash. But like, it's almost like we want a holier than thou perspective, because that gives validation to the way it's sensationalized. You made it very succinct. You said, look, this is something that exists, and it's for certain people at certain times in their life. So those things exist. It's like a drug. Here is marijuana.
Right.
Marijuana has a lot of good benefits. However, there's people on this other end of the spectrum that I'm just going to get stoned every day. I don't want to live any form of reality, and that's it. So it's almost this little sliver that we're talking about, these little sliver of people who do marijuana every day or shoot up to be good at high school football, steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are two separate issues. There's still the existence of these things called steroids or, performance enhancers, and then there's a sliver of people that are taking them for that.
Right.
But because it's tied into sports and money, it becomes this big sensational thing that we almost have to tie into. I would love to know the percentages of people that are on steroids for legitimate health reasons.
Yeah, prescribed. Yeah.
Prescribed, because that's a good part of steroids. There was one guy in the movie that he talks to, the weird guy, not the guy with the fake biceps, the other guy. There was one guy that said, I did it. I cycle on. I control it. Like, he controls it. He does it like once a year or something like that. He knows how to do it.
Right.
Quotations. That guy was interesting because it's like, okay, can you have a controlled response to being on such things? Maybe it's possible, maybe it's not,
Well, that's what that whole HGH and anti-aging industry is all about, like testosterone replacement therapy. Like, it's prescribed by a doctor, whether or not it was a sham that in the first place, how it got prescribed. But these and they even make the point in the movie that 90% 85% of people who frequent this market and support it are non-athletes. So they're doing it for cosmetic reasons. You know, they're doing it for all types of reasons. You know,
Huh.
and so much of the ire towards athletes using steroids, HGH, EPO, whatever, is it dictates everyone else's usage of it. So a lot of these things become illegal, you know. So now it can't even really be studied for people who it might help, you know, if there is the potential to help, you know.
Huh.
And that's where it gets kind of messy. I also think, kind of on a completely different note, I think that a lot of people have a big problem with it because they don't like to believe that, like, they don't want to let go of the thought that, like, my son who's in diapers right now could be on that TV hitting home runs. You know what I mean? And if everyone's juicing, then it's just sad to them because it's not real. It's not real anymore, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
I think that's how people think of it who don't think about it very hard, like we do, you know?
Yeah, I think. Well, that's because they just what. Well, to be honest with you, I didn't know. I didn't even realize that steroids. There's probably a majority of people that take steroids for legitimate reasons. I thought it was just something that was created specifically. Well, we both have to do more research on this, but like, was it created during the 80s, 70s, and 80s during like those crazy weightlifting competitions, or is this like a real thing that medical use first, then the aspect of cheating in quotations?
Well, I can tell you, I don't know about, you know, who or what it was created for, but like I'm very familiar with a lot of the science between how each of these different things work, you know?
Okay.
And, you know, I can tell you that the reason my hunch is that it has a lot to do with people wanting to manipulate hormones. So, you know, whatever reason the scientists or doctors had to manipulate hormones is where it came from. I don't know. Let's look it up right now.
Yeah,
Why,
look at that. Wikipedia, yo, steroids.
why were anabolic steroids created? Were developed to treat conditions in men like hypogonadism, where testes do not produce enough testosterone for normal growth, and some instances of impotency, and HIV and other infectious diseases, because they do contribute to T cell counts, which is one thing that you don't really have when you have AIDS. Let's see, here we go.
They don't have origin though.
I think I found one. Anabolic steroids were first made in the 1930s and are now used therapeutically to stimulate muscle growth and appetite. Let's see, where would more of an origin be? It says 1930s. Well, the interesting thing, I think, or what I'm glad most about with that documentary is that it introduced you kind of to all the nuances of it. Because, you know, while I'm looking this up, the reason I brought it up is that I've known a few people who have used anabolic steroids, and all of them did it for non-sports use and were very flawed with self-image and, you know, in terms of like these types of psychological issues, and they admitted fully to that, you know.
Yeah.
And that was why I was most worried about them. Like when I would talk to them about it, and I always told them, like, please, when you decide to go off of it, don't just quit cold turkey. You know, you need to. It's a serious. It's there's very serious consequences to your endocrinology just going off of them. You should not do that. And that's why I told him, like, go to a doctor when it's time to get off. You know, don't just quit cold turkey. And, you know, but I was more concerned out of like, you know, like why you feel the need to. It's almost like if you found out like your wife, daughter, or your mother was like bulimic, would you be mad at them for puking all, like up their food? No, you're worried about them, you know?
But I think the big stigma is cheating. Is it cheating? If somebody has a nice arms and pecs and you're like, you know, you and I walked around the gym, and we know who's on something and who's not, and it does bother us in the sense, like, it doesn't ruin us, but it's like, I can see how we get clients because of it. We're like, well, I look like this guy, and I go, well, I know that guy's on roids, so I could just see them, like, they want this standard that's not really a standard, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up too, because that's like a pet peeve of mine. Because a lot of people are really shitty at identifying who's on them, and there's really no way of knowing necessarily just by looking, you know. Like that's why I get pissed at people. Like I get all these people like that guy's on roids, and I was like, well, you don't know, maybe he's not. I mean, you and I know that certain physique types. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like you were saying, there's certain characteristics that that if I was a betting man, yes, you and I would be like, yeah, he's probably on something. But there's a lot of other guys who use different things for different reasons. Like the reason you would use growth hormone, for instance, like human growth hormone, is more often than not for recovery, because of just the way it interacts with your system. You don't really use that for big muscles. So like a guy who might get popped, like a fighter, for instance, who might get popped for HGH and fined and kicked out. You know, you might not be able to tell that he was using it. Might not even look like it. You know, it's testosterone and other anabolic hormones that are more likely to increase your skeletal muscle size. You know,
Yeah.
that's like these things. That's why I said it's so convoluted. It's like a pet peeve of mine. It's like, oh really? I'm not talking about you. I kind of use this as a tangent, but
Well,
like. There's people I work with who just, you know, they get into the whole cheating or is it not cheating thing all the time, and then they like are suddenly experts in identifying. I was like, really? You're an expert? You know, I ask them, what's the difference between HGH and the anabolic or testosterone? And they can't tell me, you know, and that's like, I was like, exactly. So you probably need to shut up, you know.
so angry, Mark. So angry. Are you on steroids, Mark?
Ah, road rage.
Angry knowledge rage, ignorance rage.
I mean, for the record, we're not sitting here endorsing anything. You know, we're trying to have a deeply
I want to say
philosophical.
I don't know enough about it to say yes or no. Like, can somebody just
Exactly.
can you do it? What, I don't even know what a cycle would be. 3 months?
I think it entirely depends on what you're using.
Yeah. Can you do it once a year and not have any ill effects? Like that's
Well, the
that-
one thing I'm right. The one thing I'm really interested to see is how the TRT market and how it's used with a lot of guys in their late 40s, 50s, 60s, as kind of in those anti-aging clinics and whatnot, and how this stuff can be prescribed and it's legal. What I'm curious to see is, and this goes back to the question you just posed, is that I'm curious to see what the long-term effects are. Like, I'm anxiously awaiting because, yeah, what if it does improve your quality of life and doesn't take any time off of your life? I mean, Rhonda Patrick's talked a lot about research that increased levels of IGF-1, which is an anabolic hormone in your body, usually are associated with shorter life terms. People who are more calorically restricted.
that's why it's said to fast.
Right, exactly. Why more calorically restricted diets, that might involve fasting, those people tend to live longer. And,
Although that one guy, Aubrey de Grey, said it has nothing to do with fasting. Has nothing. They can't find any direct research, so it's interesting.
right, exactly. So, and that's also not to say that increased IGF-1 levels are associated with people who used any kind of drug. It could have just been their natural, just how they were, how they chose to live their life, whatever. But I'm just interested to see that because this is not an illegal drug. Like, I'm just curious to see the people who study it, the long-term effects of the people, and what comes out about it. Because in 20 years, someone like me has absolutely no reason to entertain, given my age and whatever, has no reason to really entertain being on anything like that. But in 20 years, and I'm 46, 47, and I'm, lower testosterone obviously than a 25-year-old, and it's found out that, 20-year studies, 20-year trajectory studies that someone on TRT has experienced better quality of life, whatever that means. It's something that people are going to entertain. They're going to think about whether or not they actually, even make that doctor's appointment or anything like that. You know, it's gonna fly through your head. You know.
No, I hear you. And then, to tie it all up, like, I'm an older guy. I'm 40 now, so I've never, when I lift, whenever I do any of my stuff, I treat, like, mobility, meditation, food. I treat all those things like steroids. Like, those are the things that I do before I do this. Like, I hit my mobility religiously,
Pre-workout.
Yeah, I hit it religiously because I figure it's basically all the factors we talk about, mobility, meditation, water consumption, all that stuff, and I've never been tired for a workout. I've never needed to use a pre-workout, all that stuff. I just tend to, unless I overdo it. So, like, I'll play soccer, bike to work, and then I'm like, okay, I have to lift today, but I need a little bit of edge, so I'll take some, BCAAs, or I tried that creatine, and all it did was made me go to the bathroom. That's about it.
I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, I was like, I had to go to the bathroom. Woo! So I went to the bathroom. I was like, okay, creatine's pretty intense. But other than that, I don't. It's funny because I have all these young dudes at the gym. They're like 21, 22, 23, 24, and they're pre-workout, intra-workout, post-workout, and I'm like, there's got to be some OCD thing going on, or some deep, like, I'm not X, Y, Z. So I always try to just kind of, just fit the food in, do what you got to do. And then if that all fails, then you use a supplement as a supplement, meaning to help you, like, a little bit of an edge, not too much.
Or to make up for a deficiency.
Yeah. If you're at the gym with a cup of coffee every day, which I hate those guys.
Yeah, I know, you really do good.
I'm like, they just have a big cup of iced coffee, and I'm like, just go away. Like, you're just basically putting your adrenal glands on fire before you work out, which is like, why don't you just stick your finger in the light socket and then go work out? I mean, I understand why they do it. For me, I drink more coffee when I have to deal with a lot of people because I need that energy. So it's never like, oh, pre-workout, To me, when I'm tired before workout, that tells me don't work out.
Yeah, or you're not ready for whatever it is you're about to do, and maybe you should do what would be appropriate.
Yeah, it's very
or
weird.
It tells you that you didn't prepare well enough for it. So if you have a strong deadlift day and you feel like you need a pre-workout, and we've talked about this before, it means that you probably didn't sleep well enough the night before, And then you need to ask yourself, I'm on some strength building program that requires a lot of sleep, and I'm not getting it. What the fuck's wrong with me,
Or I need 9 hours.
Right. And the other thing is, to kind of respond to what you were saying about the young guys, the 21-year-olds. I mean, you just actually talked about the wisdom of age right there. I mean, think about when you were 21. I'm not that far removed from 21, but I can tell you I was a much different person when I was 21. That much more insecure, much more fixated on things that you think might validate you or improve your standing in life.
I was an idiot when I was 21. I thought more was better. I was a runner, so I thought, okay, if I train, that mentality of like I'm doing this at midnight and somebody else is not doing it. Like that stupid ass mentality of like more work than the other person who's not working out right now type mentality,
Right. Yeah.
When in reality, less is more, or like quality is better than more, I feel.
Agreed.
And you and I know that's how those NFL guys are going now. Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly.
Right.
It's all about quality. Like quality reps, quality food, quality rest, quality, time away from the gym. Are you happy? Like quality. Because basically, you guys treat your bodies really hard for 16 weeks a year.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know. We'll see. Everything's coming full circle.
It is. I mean, and I think it was an important discussion to have. I mean, the way I feel about it ultimately, kind of at the end, to sum it up, is that me personally is that I'm not the type of person that would put myself through any type of risk lightly. So, there's too many unknowns with a lot of these things that just don't make it worth it to me. But I can't judge someone who is 6 weeks out from a fight and can't recover or has an injury, and if they don't win that purse, the house goes.
I think it's like you were saying, it's the question. I guess you know what? Screw all that shit. Like it's nice to theorize that, but would you do it? Are there any circumstances where you would do it?
I don't think so because you know me that before
Yeah.
you even tell me to take ZMA, I'm vetting the shit out of it. You know.
Same thing for me. Like I don't. There's nothing that I would not take, and it's personal morals. Again, I won't judge anybody else, but personally, I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I'm very future oriented, you know, in the past sometimes in an anxiety inducing way, but I never want to necessarily sacrifice for now for later. You know, that's gonna harm me later. You know what I mean? Or I don't
Yeah,
know.
I've done that before, and it's not worth it. Nothing is. I've always regretted it. Going, damn it, you know, like if I just would have waited, this would have happened. You know.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah, like I said, everybody make your own judgment on your own, but you know, watch stuff like Bigger, Faster, Stronger to get a different perspective, a very human perspective, which was done very well and it covered a lot of different bases.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's the bottom line.
And that's the bottom line, because Freud said so.
Exactly. I came up with that all by myself.
Yeah. Yep. Well, you know where to find us if you're listening to us, but if you don't, you can search iTunes, Functional Meatheads. Same on Stitcher, functionalmeatheads.com. Email us as always at functionalmeatheads@gmail.com. And I think that's it. Freud posts on Twitter at funmeatheads.
You'll learn a lot about life if you read those articles.
Yes, exactly. Well, Froy, what do you call it? What's like? I know that Froy had a day on the sofa when I look at my inbox and I have 15 unread, all from Froy, and they're all forwarded articles.
Because it's good stuff, yo, quality stuff.
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, read that Soul Cycle one. It's a good one.
Oh, I did. I read all of them. You sent me like 3 Soul Cycle ones.
That was a good one though. The one about how it's just like a Bosu ball. Like you want to burn calories, okay, don't do the stupid weights. Just concentrate on the pedaling.
Oh
You
yeah,
wanna-
I was wondering where you were going with that analogy, and now it makes sense.
Yeah, because I always hate the Bosu because it's like, well, what are you trying to do? You know, usually a Bosu would be for somebody who's really advanced, not for somebody who just wants to feel their core engaged. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
I always just wonder if people put it wrong in their phases wrong. I'm like, I don't want to put it there. You know. I don't know.
Yeah. You know, as I get more experience, the way I look at it is it's more like I mean, of course it's a tool, but in other words, like you said, it's not wise to use it for those stupid reasons, but there's some like certain movements where it's like, oh, it really is useful to that someone created a half ball that doesn't roll around, you know, like maybe I do want to do something like that, but it's usually not because like I want to increase my stabilization, you know?
Yeah, it's very weird. It's very weird. Anyways, but maybe I'll post it on there. I don't know if I put it on Twitter. I don't think I'd put it on Twitter, but maybe I will one day, and you guys can read about it. But
It was an older article.
yeah, it's from the LA Times too. I didn't like that a lot of them hadn't been there. Like the lady, she should have gone to a class, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was a little weird. And then a lot of people who they quoted to criticize it, it was like they hadn't gone either. It was like, what?
But speaking from experience, I've gone, and they do a lot of that. And I was like, oh, they're basically tricking you into doing intervals. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But I also know that, like, you don't necessarily have to have tried something to know you wouldn't like it. So.
Yeah, or like, here's this exercise I'm explaining, and it's like, oh, that's not good for you.
Right, exactly.
All right, people, hit us up. Let us know what you want us to talk about, or ask us any questions, and we can go from there.
Yes, indeed. We'll talk to you next week. And take care. Why not brush your hair?
Watch regular show.